So hi, I'm Jamie Hotchkiss and I use Edmodo in my classroom for, I use it actually to communicate with my kids for upcoming events. I keep the calendar up to date. I also use it for, I upload videos and I upload questions and things like that where we can have a dialogue back and forth between us. I'm working on, some new questions and things that I can put on there. Kids get graded based on what they turn in and what their comments are. My first 24 hours with Edmodo was a bit scary because I wasn't sure how the kids were going to react, because this is a program much like Facebook, and so what they say gets posted. But it turns out that I have a lot more power than I needed. The power I have is I can go in there, I can make comments, I can delete comments, I can go in, I can lock somebody's account so that they can't get in anymore. So I have a lot more power than you would on Facebook. So when somebody says something inappropriate, I was on there right away the first 24 hours and I'm like, hey, you guys got to keep it clean. And ever since then, I'm not on it quite as much, but the comments have been appropriate. Some kids are putting on things about their favorite sports stars and things like that, but it is it's an area for the kids to actually talk to each other, and they're comfortable with each other and they're working with just their peers. And so Edmodo does give you that power to keep control of things. And now there's a new way for parents to get involved where they can get a key, they can get in, and they can check their kid's account and make sure everything's on the up and up. So it works really well.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Bell. I teach reading and language arts at Heineman Middle School, and I currently use Edmodo in my classroom. I found that the students do enjoy working on the computers and using technology a lot. So I've come up with some different ways of using Edmodo to enhance learning. I currently have the students share a lot of their opinions about the happenings within the classroom through journaling. I use open-ended journals, response-type journals about the lessons that day so that I can find out what the students understood and what they didn't understand. I ask the students what were they thinking. So when they see a prompt on Edmodo called "What were you thinking?" they know right away to tell me simply what they thought about the lesson so that I can get a better understanding of what they learned. That way there's no misinterpretation of what I thought they learned as opposed to what they really learned. I do grade Edmodo journals for paragraph writing. We do some intensive directions on how to write a paragraph, and I'm only expecting a paragraph, not an essay. I use My Access, a different writing program for essays. So I'm really only looking for a paragraph. I also use Edmodo for them to tell me things about their week so that they can share with me in a journal type of way things that went well that week and things that didn't go well. I want the students to feel like they have a voice in my classroom and they've been heard, and that I genuinely care about what they have to say. And I don't want writing to always be so rigid and so forced. So in that respect, they journal about what they're actually just feeling about what happened academically that week. And then I get to know them a little bit more too. And again, I only want a paragraph. It does get somewhat daunting having to read, 82 essays. So I only want that paragraph. I also do quarterly reviews. So I'll ask them to please write a goal of what they did well that quarter or what they didn't do so well, and I ask them to make a goal based on that. And then periodically I'll ask them to, through the prompt, tell me how they think that they are doing in meeting that goal.
Hi, my name is Jason Monson, 8th grade Language Arts and Reading at Heineman Middle School. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how I use Edmodo. The main reason or focus that I use Edmodo for is for my reading letters. They're basically dialogues between myself and the students on the books that they're reading outside of class. I give them a list, and they have a specific list of books that they can read. This is what the letters look like generally. So they'll write me a letter about the book that they're reading. In this case, the student was reading The Big Field. And then I write letters back to them. Obviously, you can see one of the improvements to this is my handwriting. But I write letters back to the kids, and then we just kind of go back and forth, discussing their independent books with them outside of class. So Here's what it looks like on Edmodo. You know, I had to sign the kids up and get them logged into the program, which is a pretty simple process. And then they belong to my class, so you can see over here on the left-hand side, I have literature class first period and literature class third period. And then if I were to click on here, it takes you to the assignments. So I was able to put them on reading letter 1 and reading letter 2. And the nice thing is they're able to ask questions about due dates. You can see that this was around the time of our multiple snow days, and they were able to contact with me even outside of school to find out when this was going to be due and what my plans were for that. So there's the turn-in link, and this is what I see. So then I have all the students' names over here on the side, and we'll just go to this one right here. You know, he's able to write me their letter, and then I'm able to make comments back to them.
Now, some of my kids' comments at first were, "This is really cool." I had a parent who was concerned, so I talked to him about it on the phone. He's totally fine with it now, so he uses it with his kid, with his son. And as far as the comments are concerned, you know, you're always going to get your kids who don't think it's cool because it's school-related, but when you make it something they're supposed to do, then they generally get on and they'll do what they're asked.
At first, when I first started using Edmodo, I found that it was too much. I was putting things on the calendar for them to do. They were feeling like it was totally overwhelming because they had several places to check. They had their agendas to check. They had their team webpage to check to see what was due that day, and then they also had the Edmodo calendar to check. So I kind of just informally surveyed them and talked to them about that. And they did seem a little overwhelmed. So I kind of narrowed it down a little bit, and I just put it in there as a regular homework assignment. I don't use the calendar as much as I was using it at first, and they seem to have embraced it a little bit more. They're a little bit more open to Edmodo journaling in that respect because I don't force it down their throats per se. But I think that because I'm only asking for a paragraph, and they often get to say what they feel in regards to what happened that week or what they're learning. They feel listened to through Edmodo, and it's not just a regular assignment, that they're more open to having to do the assignment.
I think it's intimidating at first when they first get into it, but I mean, these kids are doing things online and with computers all over the place anyway. So I think eventually they appreciate having an outlet to do it online than having to write it in journals and things like that once they get into it and get a sense of the program. It definitely took a week or so for them to get a handle on what it looked like and what was done with it, though.
I get a chance to follow up on individual students, which is really nice. So if I get a student who comments on a particular video that I put in, for example, I put a video in on what it would be like to live in zero gravity, and so they had teachers on the vomit comet, which was the airplane that goes up and down. And what that did was it gave me a chance to see how they would perceive what it'd be like to live in zero gravity. And then I could then comment on their comments, and they could comment back, and so we had this dialogue back and forth that I wouldn't normally get with 28 kids in a classroom. So it was pretty nice.
I love Edmodo in the aspect that the papers are never lost, quote unquote. They can't tell me they lost their paper or I have lost their paper. They're right there. A lot of times students, if they don't turn something in, you have your students that occasionally lose assignments or think the teacher has lost the assignments. And I find it's just satisfying to say, well, look, the computer didn't erase your assignment, you never turned it in. And it could be like 2 weeks later and they're thinking they turned it in, but they really didn't. So it really helps me there. Another thing that's very useful for me is I have an iPhone, i4, and we, on the weekends, my daughter is in travel soccer, so we might travel to Indiana or Evanston or wherever. And I sit in the car and I grade papers while we're traveling, and so that helps me out. You know, it's a time saver in that respect. The papers are always there. We can communicate back and forth, and it's in a written context. So I know exactly what I told them, and we can go back and review that if they ever get confused.
As far as improvements that this program has done, in the past, I did reading letters with my classes every other week, so I rotated my reading classes with them, and it's usually about an hour and a half to 2 hour process of writing letters back to each of my students. And I have found that with Edmodo I've been able to do it every week, and it's a lot quicker process for me. I think the students get a little bit more out of it because they don't have to try and suffer through my handwriting anymore. So it's just a program that's really helped with my dialogue journals with my students online, and it gives them that opportunity. In addition, they're able to ask questions and things like that, you know, about the assignments and about things in general. You know, I have found that students have generally liked to reach out a little bit. Like if we go down my home thing right here, you know, I have a student who's asked if there's a possible way to bring up their grades. So they've even taken the program and gone outside of the specific assignments to ask other questions. I had a student on here who asked specifically why they were getting grades, and now you're able to interact with the kids through that as well.